Welcome everyone this evening. Welcome tonight. Pretty excited again for that finger spelling topic. Before I go into it, I do want to introduce myself a little bit of who I am. So my name is Richard, but I prefer to go by Ricky. Ricky Rose, my preferred super K. And this is my sign name, and you'll see that R hand shape. Now, interestingly enough, we are looking at fingerspelling tonight. Now, fingerspelling is done with letters, and there are different reasons as to why, where, and when fingerspelling occurs in sign language. Now, with my sign name, Richard or Ricky Rose, the question might be as to why I got that. Now, my first, middle, and last name all begin with the letter R. Ricky, Richard, right? And then Roger, my middle name. Yeah, interesting, Roger. Sure is the middle name. And then last name Rose. So R, and R, my three initials, all with the same letter. Then you just flip it right around and then go across the brow. Now you might ask why that's where my sign name got put. And that was given to me when I was at school. And my sign names are typically, as many of you know, given by deaf individuals at deaf schools. Maybe teachers, supervisors, friends, etc. We give each other sign names. And mine is this here, as I was saying before. But why? The real question is why? Right across the brow. Why would it be there? Well, I do have these dark, heavy, bushy eyebrows, as you may be able to see when I pull my glasses down. These are full eyebrows, no question about it. Now, my wife actually has plucked some of the eyebrows in between, so there's a nice two separation, but at one point there might have been a monobrow. That's all right. Anyway, that is where I got my sign name from, and the R's from the letters of my name. Now, I do want to go a little bit into fingerspelling. It is not just fingerspelling that we want. There's a lot more to it, right? I think there may be over 50 people tonight. So we are seeing some people that are coming in with a range of skills. They might be really just starting to fingerspell as a component of the language. They might be involved more heavily and proficient. We will be going into some of the history, etc. But there might be some interesting information that even though you yourself have been utilizing fingerspelling quite efficiently and for a long time, you might learn. Now, ASL, right? These are the A, the S, and the L on that slide over there. All right, you should be able to see that. So that's fingerspelling. But I really want to dive deep, get a big idea of what it is, big picture, and then we'll bring it back and kind of look at how it impacts the language. So go ahead, and I'm going to give you about a minute or so to read this, just some general basic information. So fingerspelling. Sometimes you might ask a reason why it shows up. And it's good to ask that because there are rules. Some things you can, some things you can't, etc., so on, right? But the how and the why, how do you know these things? They're in the rules of the language. Now, most fingerspelling is typically done to names of individuals, like myself, like we went into, Richard Rose, my name, or Ricky, right? You fingerspell it, R-A-C-K-Y. And then you can add more information from there. You've got my sign name, right? And we can go into that a little bit more later. Obviously, the introduction of the fingerspelled name is just how it starts. So you would fingerspell your name as soon as you meet somebody, right? Hi, my name is, and then you fingerspell your name. Now, names of places. Many, many places do need to have the names fingerspelled. States, for example, the names should be fingerspelled. Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Oregon, Idaho, etc. All of those are fingerspelled. They're places, so that's a very typical reason. Cities and towns as well. Now, some do have their own sign names, but others do not. And in those instances, you would fingerspell them. And if you need to know if you need to have that information, you do want to fingerspell it because that provides it. And then you're also looking at titles. If you're looking at movies or books, those should be fingerspelled. TV shows as well. All of those typically are fingerspelled. Now, there are signs that are often used by people, but officially, more formalized rules of ASL, you would actually fingerspell them out. Names of culinary dishes. If you go to a restaurant, maybe you go to somewhere that has, like maybe we'll say a PF Chang's, right? You go to PF Chang's. So you've got the PF and Chang. You spell all that out. So the restaurant's name itself as well. Technical words. A lot of that jargon type words are very frequently fingerspelled, like Mac, TC, let's see, IQ, IP, all of those typically are fingerspelled. Those technology words and jargon words are very frequently within the items that are fingerspelled within the language. Also, for clarification or emphasis, you would fingerspell those. Now, I do want to say, if you're looking for clarification on what a sign might have been or something along those lines, or you do want to emphasize them, that's something that provides more information. There's a specific point that you're looking for. And for emphasis, fingerspelling itself is a great tool. So that is some of the things you will notice that fingerspelling is used for. Now, tonight, I do want to let you know that I'm going to be teaching some information in regards to receptive and production. It's important to really look at the fingerspelling, really look at it, how it looks. And I'm going to go into that because there are things to know. Go ahead and read this here. Give you a short minute. All right, so first things first. As you can see here, there was no documentation of fingerspelling until this publication in 1620. The gentleman's name was Juan Pablo Bonet. Now, he was a hearing individual, a tutor, and he was teaching Spanish deaf children. And it was utilizing fingerspelling as part of that. Now, prior to that, there was fingerspelling. But again, I want to say documented. This was the first time there was documented publication of any kind in regards to fingerspelling. And from there, other countries started to notice that there would be fingerspelling and manual alphabets done with one hand or two hands. You might be familiar with the British Sign Language and their use of two hands for their fingerspelling. Here in the US, we utilize one hand. And that was, again, that 1620 Juan Pablo Bonet was the first to document it. Prior to that, there were some monks. They would get together and they would go to a retreat for 1 or 2 weeks, maybe, and they would take a vow of silence where they'd sit in contemplation. And in that time, they could not talk. That was part of the idea. Didn't matter what was happening, they were not allowed to talk. So they would use their hands under the table and fingerspell. So that was their method of communication. Again, documentation for that did not exist. It wasn't until that education component of 1620 with the documentation that started. That's part of the language's history. Now, when the first residential school for the deaf was established, there was a gentleman from France, Laurent Clerc. He came over and he brought fingerspelling in, but it was French. So there are similarities now between French Sign Language and English Sign Language, and especially within the manual alphabet. Now, fingerspelling was not always utilized with French words. It was used with English words in America. So that was a difference between the two. So it's some interesting history that fingerspelling is also inclusive mostly of nouns. So in the 19th century, so there was a lot of fluctuations within the sign language community and within the teachings of deaf children, and one was that oralism. So there were things that were utilized in part of teaching, so cat, boy, ball, using those to teach children different vocabulary. So now, history aside, let's look into this next portion, because people do ask me, I do see they sign pretty well, they're receptive, they're working on it. But they always say when it comes to fingerspelling, really receptive abilities in regards to fingerspelling are, people just sign too fast. It's like all the letters come at them at once. There's no lack of clarity. They just can't get it. And, it's been a struggle and a frustration for a lot of people. And I do understand that. Now, some deaf individuals also struggle with each other. It's not just hearing individuals, and it's not one or two people. There's a lot of people that struggle with receptive fingerspelling, and it requires practice to develop competency. I did have that practice as I grew up, but then sometimes teaching that, you realize that some of those techniques on how to learn to receptively understand fingerspelling is different. And it's not just fingerspelling practice. There are a number of problems that comes with learning, and that just starting with the manual alphabet is a problem. So you really want to look at the receptive aspects, the receptive process, the recognition of it, not just the manual alphabet and how it's used, how the hands move and the shape of them. Many people just practice the letters, but they don't practice that receptive component. And they do it in the incorrect order, because it should be reception before production. So you should be learning how to recognize the word and how it's spelled in sign language, how it looks and appears before you do it. So as an example, you can't start with writing. You have to start with reading, right? You can't start with speaking. You had to start with hearing. That's how that language works. And fingerspelling in American Sign Language is no different. Okay, so I hope that analogous example helps clear some things up. Now, typically when people start out, they have the ABCs, their alphabet right there. I don't do that. Prior to my current methods, because 30 years of teaching ASL, and in the past, I did utilize that. I use, okay, here's the A, here's the B. But the problem that I noticed is that students still struggled with that receptive component. They didn't have the ability to really grasp what somebody was fingerspelling. So after that recognition of that flaw in the system, I tossed this out. And then I started looking at sign production. This one here, right? How to recognize the words that are produced, right? Production, sign production. To me, that became the key. ASL has rules for it. ASL has the 5 parameters. Some of you may be familiar with, and those 5 parameters are the key to recognizing the signs of any individual. Anyone who's signing using the language of ASL will have those 5 parameters within their signs. These are absolutely critical elements of the language. So you do want to know that those 5 ASL parameters all show up within every sign. As an example, the first is the hand shape. Notice the sign. What hand shape am I using right here? 5, 4, 3. What does it look like? It's this index, the 1 hand shape. So that's your hand shape. Okay? So that's the first parameter. Moving on to the next is movement. Notice the movement that I'm doing. Notice how the hands are moving. So hand shape plus movement. Moving on to the third parameter, location. Where in space, where in reference to your body is it signed? It's not down low, it's not up high, it's not to the left or to the right. So it's in that sort of neutral space in front of my chest. Fourth parameter, palm orientation. How you use your hands, how they are in relation to your body. Are the palms up or down, in or out? So all of that is important. Are they backwards? Are they forwards? How you're moving your hands themselves physically, not necessarily the motion of the sign or the movement of the sign, but the hand itself. Where does it move? How is it oriented within space? So we've got hand shape, movement, location, palm orientation. So that's how you sign, right? So if you know those, then your signs are going to have clarity. Then they will have the readability, the legibility, the literacy that you're looking for in your language. So all of those signs, every sign has hand shape, location, palm orientation, and movement. And the last one is absolutely critical for every single sign production moment in your mouth. And that's your non-manual signs, the expression, how your eyes move, how your mouth morphemes are formed, how your body moves, right? If I'm just presenting to you like this with just my mouth moving, you lose so much. So those non-manual signs are absolutely critical. They are the fifth parameter of ASL. And you might have also heard them called non-manual markers. So you see, I fingerspell all of that. And again, the reason for that was the emphasis. I wanted it to be understood, and it's important. So NMM or NMS, those are included within the 5 parameters of ASL, and they apply to all aspects of teaching the language, all aspects of learning it, and all aspects of it, the language, whether it's fingerspelling, classifier usage, signs, etc. You have to understand those 5 parameters of sign production before you can really take off with your journey in the language. So how you sign is incredibly important to how you can understand it. But it's really important to start with that receptive element, to really start just as you would any other language. So that's just a little seed that I want to kind of plant, and I'm hoping that it'll start to grow in your mind. Now, you're not looking for that native-like production. You really want to start the same way as you started with English. Start with your reception of it rather than your production of it. So that's the same thing I tell all the students. And I can, I tell them, it's so important to be able to start to understand the language before you can start to use the language, right? And you want to be able to sign clearly. So I want to make sure that you can understand me. It means that I want to make sure that my sign production is better as well. And that's something you will see as an exemplar and can take into your own language and your own production. So I do want you to recognize the 5 parameters of ASL before we really start diving into this, because it is absolutely critical to understanding. So again, the alphabet, I already told you why. We're just going to get rid of it. Don't even worry about it. Okay. So I do split the letters into 5 categories. I do not teach it as A to Z. I have done some studies and I've looked basically at the hand shape, how they're set up. What's the palm orientation, right? I looked at that. Where's the location, the movement, etc., the hand shape. And after some study, I noticed that there are these 5 categories. And these I have set up here, and you can see them on the slide. The first one is the fist category. The second one is the inside. Then the third is up, the down, and the movement. Okay, pretty interesting, right? So go ahead and look at the hand shapes, right? I looked at that first. Now remember, in sign production, hand shape is one of the parameters. Even this right here, there's a parameter here. If I use a B versus an A, different meaning. Whether it's an index finger or a 2, see, me sign, 2, 1, 1. Then you see the movement as well. The hand shape and the movement out from my face, the location where it's at, me is on my chest or later, right? All of these have to be incorporated into one sign for all of its production. So fingerspelling, it's the same thing. So I looked at it. So we got the fist, and you can go ahead and copy me. You don't need to put your screens on. You can leave your cameras off, but do please copy me. Don't just sit there and watch. I really want this to be interactive for you so you can start to incorporate some of it into your own as we go through it. So start with the fist, right? Like rah, rah, hit the wall. So you've got the fist. Now the movement. The thumb, notice the thumb, or the index finger. There's some movement in these. Or it might be the pinky. There's some movement, okay? So I'm not moving those 3 fingers or the 2 fingers in the middle. So watch the movement. Ready? This is the S. Hold it up. It's the fist handshake. It's already there. As soon as you make a fist, you've got an S on your hand because of that thumb. It kind of looks like an S. Now the E, right? The movement is just this little bit. It doesn't move any farther than just extending that first joint. So it's still a part of the fist. Then we've got the A, right? Still a fist. The only thing that happened is the thumb moved. Whether it's an A or an S or an E, it's all based on the thumb, right? So you see that as the fist. So that's why I say this the category that is the fist category of fingerspelling. I'm looking at that handshake. So A, S, A, S. Same thing. The fist itself is still there. Now the E, just extend from that first joint. E, S, A, T. Still, that the overall handshake has not changed. The only movement really is part of that thumb. Now the index finger to the T. We've got the E, just a short extension. S, A, T. And now M. Still a fist. The hand is still closed. And then it's the 3 forefinger, middle finger, and ring with the thumb underneath it. So M, A. Then the N. Still a fist shape, right? That hand is still collapsed into a fist. And the O, looking at the back, it's still a fist. It hasn't extended completely, right? So M, N, T. Everything is still that fist. That general shape is all there for all of those letters. So now copy me as part of your receptive practice. I want you to really practice. So I'm going to fingerspell only with the fist. I'm going to go slow, and then I'm going to pick it up. Wow. All of that is just with the fist. I have not used anything else. There's been no up or down orientation of my palm. Nothing's changed. It's only just the fingers, short extensions, but the overall hand shape of a fist being there. Okay, so that's that first category. Now I'd like to go into the the inside. So there's just 2 letters in this, and you're going to see this, and you'll know it immediately, right? Just the 2 letters. So 24 other letters, you don't even have to think about it, right? Because G and H, they're the only 2 that have this orientation. That's it. And it's to the inside, it's not the out. That is wrong because the palm orientation is incorrect. Okay? The palm is back to you and it's pointed in. So palm orientation for these are critical. So G and the H, the palm is towards the middle, back towards the middle, G and H. That's it. 2 letters. That's all you have to remember for that one. Now the ups. There's a lot of them. A lot of these letters do have them. But what does it mean? It's the wrist. I'm focusing on the wrist in this instance. All the letters where the wrist is essentially pointed up. It's an open palm of some sort. It's not a fist, right? So that's to help you receptively try to grab those shapes and narrow it down. So a lot of interpreters will ask me, and I say, hey, you got to look at the shape and the movement. I mean, that's a good starting place, right? Just look at that. That's just a good starting place. So B, right? Now, sometimes you'll say the shape is open B or closed B. So you have this. Now that open B is often used for classifiers like a wall or a window, etc. So that's called that open B. It's just where the thumb's at. But for the letter, when you're using it to spell, it's best to close it because that is the correct formation. But again, looking at that wrist and the orientation, it's up. C, same thing. D, look at the wrist and how the palm is in relation to it. Everything is up, even with the K. And also notice how you form it. You want to make sure that you do have the K out, but the palm is still facing out. It's that you don't tilt it so that somebody sees the profile of it. L, R, again, maintain looking at that wrist and the palm's orientation with it. X and Y, okay? All of those, every single one of them, the wrist was straight up and down. So now I want you to copy me. B, C, D, F, K, L, R, U, V, W, X, Y. So that's the up category. Now I'm going to mix them up and you're going to copy me. We're going to start slow and I'm going to pick up the pace. Okay. So first one, the fist grouping. Second one, the inside. Third grouping is the up. And now we've got down. And there's only two. 2 out of 26. 2 and with 24 eliminated. So it's the P and the Q, right? Hand shape, same as the K for the P, right? But that wrist, look at the wrist. The P, all it does, drops down. K, P, K, P. Go ahead and copy me. Hand shape stays the same. There's no change to it. The wrist is the key there. And relaxed. You just relax it. KP, 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 PK, right? So this is down, so P and Q. So the concept of a G, and you just rotate that down. So that inside group goes to that down group, and you've got the difference between G and Q. It's the same shape, the same exact shape. So again, sign production. I'm going to emphasize that throughout. That's something that you really need to look at because ASL production, the sign production is absolutely critical in understanding and producing the language. So again, hand shape, location, etc. Where's the location in relation to the palm and the wrist, right? Those are going to be key elements to making sure you recognize which letters are being used. And then the last two, there's just 2 out, out of 26 with 24 removed. You've got 2 left, right? J, the movement category, J and Z, that's it. There's only 2. There's either J or Z. It's only 2 letters that have that movement category, J, Z. So if you see any movement within the letter, then you automatically know it has to be either J or Z. So now watch me. I'm going to use 4 different categories, and it's going to be in one word. Are you ready? Here it is. So we've got the up, the fist, the movement, and the up, lazy. So that's good for your receptive. L-A-Z-Y, lazy. You know, it starts with the up. Then you goes to the fist, a movement, and the Y, which is another up. So that's a good starting spot. It's just the foundation. It's just that those building blocks. And that absolutely critical building block, the keystone to it is going to be sign production. The alphabet's not as important. You know, you want to read it it's how you read. right? So you are going to want to read it like you would a written language. That's where you start with the receptive. Just a few tips. Now on the slide, some of those tips I was mentioning, and with a book, right? You read it left to right, top to bottom. And do you typically scan it or do you look at every single letter? A, T, E, A, N, A, P, P. You look at each individual letter, or do you just read through it and you got ate an apple? Which one? How do you read it? You read it like ate an apple, right? The fingerspelling is done the same way. How you receptively understand fingerspelling, it's the same way. And that's the challenge. A lot of people say, oh, no, it's easy to read. So the letters are on a page. It's block letters on white background. You can read through it. But fingerspelling is just once. Yeah. But how do you improve your receptive is you really have to use repetition and look at the whole word, the entire shape of it. That's what you're looking at, not the individual letters, the shape, the movement, the production elements of it. When you practice that, it's the same as when you practice reading, right? You started with the letters and then you looked at words and over practice and over time, you started with sentences, you got those sentences, and over time, you were able to read a whole entire story. Sign is the same thing. Language is language, the concept applies. So the first tip, gone into that, it's pretty obvious. The second one, the ASL 1, 2, and 3, sometimes ASL 4 students, they are a little bit, they're looking at it and they're looking right at the hand. They're thinking, oh gosh, I got to catch the letters. Okay, hold on. A, B, T, A, B, let me think. And they sit there and they're looking at the hand and they're trying to memorize the letters. That's a common mistake. You need to look at the whole person. Because again, those non-manual signals are going to be important. Eyebrows up or down, that's part of the language, right? You might see that somebody starts to move their body a little bit. All of that is incorporated in the fingerspell word. If you're just looking at their hand, you're missing the richness, the dynamicy of the language. And you'll often feel like you're wasting time and pulling your hair out. So again, step back, look at the whole. Don't just look at the hand, the entire holistic view of a person as they produce their language, their eyes, their nose, their mouth, everything. Everything important is going to be on the face just about. Now, you will start to recognize words too. I guarantee it. Oh, another tip. You do want to watch how deaf people fingerspell. There are some very typical components to the hows and the whys. The letter, first and last, tend to be just a little bit longer held than those middle ones, right? As an example, watch my fingerspell. Cartoon. I brought up the C. I started that C. I'm holding it a little bit longer than ARTOO. That's pretty quick. And then the end at the end, right? So the C and the N, those tend to be held a little bit longer. Just a little bit. So that's another way that you can catch some of those letters. You start with the beginning, you know that the shape and the movement of the interior letters is fine, and then you get to the end and it's held right at the end. You catch those two, the first and the last, and you fill in the blanks, more or less. And that's again based on your receptive skills, how you are noticing the movement and of the hands, its orientation to itself, etc. Here we go. Notice the C and the N are held both times, right? I wish that, when you had the chance to watch the recording tonight, it would be possible, but please do go ahead when you do get it. You can go ahead and pause it and look at it as you need it. In ultra slow motion, I'm just providing the same word. I tend to bring up that C, right? Deaf people in general, bring up that starting letter. They let you catch the shape. You see it's one of the ups and it's a C. Now you've got the fist, an up, a fist, another fist, another fist, another fist, right? So you have the A, the T-O-O-N, all of those were fists, right? There was only one that was the up. There's R and the C in the end. Those are being held at the end, right? So those are a few tips on how you can start to really not look at the letters, but look at the word, right? C-A-R-T-O-N, cartoon. As another example, let me think. Boston, right? Notice how it's pronounced. Eyes up, head up, says get ready. I'm going to give you something that you're going to see as a fingerspelling. Boston. The B is held, the N is held. So those are just a few little tips to help you out. Some maybe triggers to know what's coming next. Language is predictive, and this is going to help you with your receptive practice and how you use fingerspelling. Now, there are some other items that are important to recognize, and they're pretty cool. Some tricks, but they're very important. Just a few of them, that things you might have overlooked. Maybe you see something, but you don't necessarily understand it. That's all right. Double letters. So like RR, SS. So they're typically between the middle and the end of the word. And I'll go into those a little bit more later about that as we go through this. Now, looking at the previous slide and this one, contextualization. It's important. I want you to look, where was it at? Oh, cartoon, no, that didn't really, okay. So contextualization. I might go back to cartoon. I just fingerspelled, right? Cartoon, might go back to that. So, got up in the morning, I saw the TV was on. I saw there's some cartoons. And sure enough, my son had gotten up early and he was watching some Saturday morning cartoons. What was the context that was provided there? The TV was on, cartoons. And who's watching TV? That's your context. You know, I'm talking about TV, we're talking about watching it. I figured it's about something. You know it's related to TV. It could be a show, or it could be an episode, could be anything related to TV. We've already contextualized that one token of the language. That means you don't have to think about food. You don't have to think about car, store, automobiles, medication, technology, all out the window. You're able to remove all of those things that are not part of this specific context. And you use that context to then determine what you're seeing to help you with that. Because you know it's not all those things I mentioned previously. So anything related to those, you can check them off the list, cross them off. They're not going to be there. All of the possible words that could show up in your life, could show up in the language, have been narrowed down to TV. So then you start to think, what are some possible things regarding a TV that might come up? That's contextualization. Now, supposing I was talking maybe about, I went to, some sort of a tech store, computer store, etc. I was looking at a computer, I had a Mac or PC. I was trying to figure out which one I wanted. But I want to know a lot about it. So I'm going to ask somebody that has that tech expert knowledge. And then we know we're talking about technology, right? Context, what it is. We know there's a computer, so automatically you can eliminate food categories. That's not going to show up. You can anything related to automobiles, toss them out. So all of these things you just filter out and you narrow it down. Do the smarter, not harder kind of work, light duty work. So I said technology, then you can start to think of what's related to technology. That's going to just sort of prime the pump for that word that's coming up, right? Now, if I wanted to go maybe get some food, so then you know that I'm going to be finger spelling things about foods. It's not going to be auto parts in a grocery store, most likely, right? So now all of the automobile jargon, all of the automobile language, toss it out the window. You're focusing on what the context of my story or comment, which is food, might be, and expect words in that regard. So again, you want to take the burden off yourself of knowing the entirety of all language and focus on the language that is going to appear within the context of what is being discussed. So you can start to really trim it down. But often the problem is when it comes to names. Fingerspelling names is tough. Maybe at a graduation, maybe an award ceremony. Names are spelled over and over, and it's tough to get all of those names 100%. And that is a very valid complaint in regards to fingerspelling because the context is names, and that can be anything. Now, another thing to notice in regards to fingerspelling, you will notice certain things, 3 different categories. I don't want to call them skills, but 3 different types of fingerspelling. Okay. We have the first one. You don't see it quite often, but for emphasis or at the beginning of an introduction, maybe the emphasis on starting slide of your slide deck, you want to make sure that there is clarity in what you're talking about. So you have that first category of careful fingerspelling, slow fingerspelling, clear. And again, that's showing those beautiful hand shapes as slowly produced letters, very clearly. It's not fast. It has that clarity to it that allows for easy access. But you will often utilize a weak hand to indicate your sort of non-dominant hand, your non-dominant hand or base hand to indicate what it is. You don't have to, but you can. The point is it has to be slow production. Rapid fingerspelling is pretty much your everyday usage, okay? Those are going to be items that are missed. Oftentimes, deaf people notice that an individual is hearing and they'll slow it down, just as a natural part of their code switching. So then they switch from a rapid fingerspelling to a careful fingerspelling because they want you to understand. Fingerspelling can be done incredibly quickly, right? And it's easy to miss. And I get that. Absolutely. Now, sometimes I do miss what somebody's fingerspelling at me. I myself, as a deaf individual, I'll be, wait, whoa, that was too fast. Say it again. And that other person, oh, excuse me, let me slow it down, right? Let me slow it down. So they shift from the rapid fingerspelling to careful. And that's okay. That happens sometimes, right? People say, but I'm always afraid to ask. I mean, they're going to look down at me. They're going to think I don't know the language. And that's true. There is a little bit of shaming that does happen. But sometimes it's because a deaf individual doesn't know how to code switch or shift between those different categories. It never hurts to ask. Oftentimes, I myself, a deaf individual, born and raised, I don't feel embarrassment. I'm not afraid to ask. I ask for that repetition if I need it. And that's okay for you to do as well. You do need to practice that repetition. If you're asking for it again and again and again, maybe 10, 6 different times that you're asking for that repetition, I get it. It can be frustrating for them as well. So you do want to practice your receptive fingerspelling skills. So we have these 3 categories. We have careful, rapid, and the third one is a sign of fingerspelling, kind of a mix, right? It's a borrowed loan, right? It's maybe a sign that fingerspelling has become something that all of itself, all of its own. The word has become a sign. Like, for instance, my name, Ricky Rose. Now, it's not just this as a sign. It includes a word with it, right? So that concept is called lexicalize, where the sign and a word are blended into one. Sign. So you have careful, rapid, and then sign and word together, blended as lexicalized. And you will see it abbreviated in sign as LEX, Lex, for lexicalize. Now, this still includes all 5 parameters. Absolutely, every single one of them within one word. One sign, one lexicalized fingerspelled word includes all 5 parameters. I want to emphasize that. And that's your lexicalized fingerspelling. I have several slides going forward where we're going to see a number of those. It's pretty cool. There's a little bit of play into them, play with the fingerspelling, play with the language, all of that. And it's absolutely beautiful and amazing, a rich part of the language. And you can go ahead and copy me as we practice. I actually ask that you do. Okay. I'm going to show you 2 slides. They are the exact same. Notice the only the difference is the category, which type it is, careful or rapid. Same words. So I'm going to fingerspell it a little bit differently. I'm going to emphasize where I'm going. Maybe I'm going fishing or on vacation. So then I'm going to be careful, right? And deaf people that have that knowledge and skills, they do know to do that. That's, like if I know where I want to plan to go, I'm going to slow it down for it. So the first time it's introduced, it's typically I will start with the careful fingerspelling. The second or third time, it's going to change over into that rapid. All right. So during my conversation, the production of the word changes with that familiarity. So go ahead and copy me. First word, Denver. Denver. Now that's the English word. There's no movement to it. It's a purely representation of the English word with letters, Denver. That's English represented visually. Now we have Flagstaff, Flagstaff. Now, do be careful. I'm going to show you rapid later. It is different. So right now, it's Flagstaff. Darell, Daryl. Karem, Kareem. Oregon, Oregon, or Oregon. So you practice looking at the shape, right? The first and the end. Go ahead and practice those receptive skills. Don't just sit there and stare, without intent. So I'm going to do this again. Xenophobe, xenophobe or xenophobe. You see the shapes, right? You saw the movements. Remember, those 5 categories of the letters, right? And notice the first and the last. Notice there's some movement within those 2, right? So that word, that's a great word. It has all of the 5 categories I taught. Here it again. Nope, that is not the right one. Now here we go. Xenophobe. Next. Jovial, jovial. So that's careful fingerspelling, slow, clear. Now we're going to go into rapid. Notice the difference. DNVER. DEN drops down, V pops up, ER. Right? So that's more rapid fingerspelling. That's not careful. Careful is the representation of the English in visual space, whereas rapid is different. There's movement, right? Notice the FF drops out. Slow and careful, it doesn't have that. FF, right? So there's that little bit of difference. Rapid fingerspelling, more as a representation of a concept within ASL versus representation of the English. Daryl, slow, careful fingerspelling. Rapid. Notice the difference. I hope you see the difference. I keep saying notice it, but I really do hope that you're seeing the difference between the two production styles. Oregon. Here's careful for Oregon. Oregon. And fast, Oregon. Is anyone from Oregon? Wait, what? You said from Oregon? What? Damn. So that rapid pacing is part of the language. Xenophobe or xenophobe. And that's rapid finger spelling, right? As opposed to Xenophobe, it's xenophobe. So I hope that you can see the difference. Like it may look the same or similar, absolutely. I mean, it's the same word, but again, that production, how it's being produced, and deaf people have that ability to move back and forth between the two. And oftentimes, you'll see deaf individuals that are signing back and forth, and they're most frequently using that rapid spelling type. And then the last is jovial. Now, moving on, some tips. Just a few more tips. This time in regards to double letters. They're a little bit strange. There are three differences that three different double letter combinations or pairings that I put in there. So there are three different ways of producing them. There's the contact or double tap double letters. So for instance, TT like so. So it's having the T with the T, right? So that's that double contact or double tap, SS. That's one method. So TT, SS, MM. So that's that double tap. If there's no contact, you might have the shift. It's still that. If it is that double contact letter, it tends to stay in the same place. So it's just that double tap with the same one, KK. You don't have to go K and then jump it over to the left in K, right? So that just is an example. Kitty, K-I-T-T-Y, K-I-T-T, notice that, right? It stayed in place, just did the double tap. Now it wasn't K-I-T, jump over to another T and Y, right? Because I'm using this method of producing that double letter, which is just TT. So double contact, double tap. Now, there are ways of doing it without it. K-E-L-L-Y. So notice there is a little bit of movement on that. Because again, the L there's no connection, there's no contact made, right? There's no tap made. So it has a slight little bit of movement where you have just the L next to the L, so, right? So the K is held, starts it. Then you see the fist, and that movement, the LL, because that slight little bit of movement and the movement forward, and the last is Y, and it's held. Now the last one. Double letters can move as well. So it can move, it can sort of slide. So zoo or Lee. So it's not zoon, right? It's Z-O-O-N. And you do that double tap because the O's, the slide is for those last letters, right? So double letters, different ways of producing them and for different reasons. So we've got Larry with the double tap, L-A-R-R-Y. There's no contact, so I have to create the contact sort of in space with a little bit of movement. L-A-R-R-Y. So it does hop a little bit. If there is some kind of contact, like Jenna, J-E-N-N-A, now I don't have to do the move or hop because there is a contact within the letter. J-E, and you could do J-E-N-N if it's Jen, then you can do the slide. But because there's the A, you want to contact, double contact and not move. J-E-N-N-A. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Now we've got Bobby, B-O-B-B. And again, why it moves just a little bit, the B doesn't connect with anything. There's no contact in the shape of the letter. Same with Timmy, T-I-M-M-Y. You have the double tap, the double contact, and you don't move it because there is within the M itself contact in the shape, in how it's produced. So that's a way to see double letters. There are a lot of clues, a lot of tips, and I hope that helps you how to kind of pick those out with your receptive. Okay? Sign production, hand shape, first and last letters, double letters. All of these are tips. Careful versus rapid versus lexicalize. This is the gamut of different tools that you can put in your toolkit to help you. I'm looking at the time now. We're just coming up on 9 o'clock. So I hope everyone is good. The interpreters still follow me. Don't check me in there. I got the thumbs up. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat because some things have been popping up. Yeah, sometimes the second time or third time, you're embarrassed. Yep. So I tap when it, oh, okay, summer. You do the tap. Okay. So what do you mean by the tap? So when you finger spell your name, can you, 1 second. So the interpreter just verified that that they use the word tap as opposed to contact. So double contact is what I was thinking. Double tap is what they said. Either so double contact would be the more appropriate. All right, so moving on to the next slide. All right, lexicalized, some of my favorites, and they are amazing. I have to tell you, and they can be truly difficult to catch. There's a style to them, etc. But I mean, they include everything, right? They have all 5 parameters. Every single parameter ASL has and requires is in one word. Everything. So the 5 parameters, we're going to do a little bit of a review again. I hope you kind of remember those. We've been going through a lot. We've got hand shape. We've got the movement, location, palm orientation, and the mouth morphemes, mouth movements, non-manual signs. All of that together are the 5 parameters of ASL. And that is my favorite component that I emphasize in every class, everything I teach. I love it. And lexicalized words have them all. Lexicalized signs have them all. It's all crammed into one short little phrase, one word with finger spelling and including all of those parameters. And it's almost like you just put it all together in this one simple, efficient production. Now, there's 2, 3, 4, 5 letters that can be utilized with lexicalized. And go ahead and copy me. I'm going to go through them pretty quick. We've only got 30 minutes left, but I want to show these to you. And we're going to go through them. So copy me. Here we go. Okay, so ASL 5 parameters. We're going to show you all. I'm going to go down this list. Doctor. I'm going to see the doctor. Notice the D is backwards and it rotates. So palm orientation is important because the lexicalized is not D, right? The palm orientation is the English representation of this letter, D. But for the lexicalized, you switch around and it becomes doctor, the concept, the sign. So the location is important. The hand shape is important. The palm orientation, where it's at. The movement, doctor, rotating out, D to the R. The movement of the palm as it rotates, the movement of the hand. That's lexicalized. So it's mixed all of those parameters in with the letters to create a sign. Okay? Doctor. So I'm going to go see the doctor. You could sign it as such, or that's my doctor. Either one. That's doctor. The other one, do. Very common, right? Second one on the list. D, but the O. Now the English word is D-O. What did you do? That would be the English, right? ASL. What are you doing? What'd you do? What are you doing? All that, right? Non-manual sign, don't forget that. That's part of the grammar. That's saying, what did you do? What are you doing, right? Or, what are you gonna do? Tomorrow, what are you gonna do? Notice the movement. I'm asking a question. My eyebrows, what's happening to them? They drop down. Tomorrow, topicalized, right? What are you gonna do? Notice how my body shifts as well. What will you do tomorrow? That's English. Don't eat it. Or, that's another one. Do you want bread or toast? Bread or toast? Notice the entire production of this. Or, it shifts over, my body shifts over. It creates that equivalency. That or, you move it left to right or right to left. Or. You prefer Macs or PCs? Since you're comparing two things, you're asking that question, either or, you move right and left. Go. It's not G-O, the English word, right? This is the normal production if you're going to spell the word go using the letters. But lexicalize, you've got go or go. So the handshake changes, right? But that's to go out, right? So you're going out. Where are you going out to? Right? So the influence of GO that has a production to it, it comes from that going out. Yeah, I'm gonna go. So that's fingerspelling. It's got that movement. Therefore, once you put all those parameters in there, it's now become a sign for that concept. Oh. So this OH, oh wow, that's my parents, like they would do this. Younger generations have kind of dropped out of using this lexicalized word. So the older generation does tend to still spell a lot more than the younger generation. Or, sorry, O. So that usage is been replaced sort of by this sign. Oh, okay. Something like this. Huh. Oh. Whereas older generations might have done oh. So we are seeing generational shifts within the language, that evolution. So it's in this instance, it's just based on generations, older versus younger. Now TV is a little bit different. Notice the movement, the rapid movement. It's done several times. It's not TV, it's TV, it's television. Maybe they were watching TV all day. Or where's the TV remote at? I need the TV remote. Anybody have an idea? Where's the remote going? So the sign, right, where the lexicalized TV, television, not TV, the English letters, and then remote. Where's the TV remote at? And it's fast too, right? TV. So that is a lexicalized sign. So, S to the O, so. S-O, so notice the palm orientation, it's still up and backwards, and it goes out. It's not S-O, the English word, it's so. Maybe you're going out for pizza. So, or maybe a movie, you watched it, so. So that's lexicalized, so. X, EX. And then look at the non-manual sign there. Oh, that's my ex, or that's my ex-wife, X. So you've got that specific. No. Oh man, no itself has so many different lexicalized versions. There's no, and that's for emphasis. Like if a kid's, they're trying to take some candy from the store, you say knock it off. N-O, no, and it's two hands, right? Or it might be no, where it rotates. That's another one. No. The palm orientation changes. No. Or it could be no. Nope. So from the 3 to the O. It looks like 30? Nah. It's lexicalized, remember? It's saying no. Nope. No. So those are lexicalized, different versions with the same one. You've got this more emphatic no, a no with two hands, three to the O. It might be a nope, not going to do it kind of no. So that's all related to NO. And then there's okay. You okay? I'm okay. And the food was okay. The TV movie, the movie I was watching, it was okay. Notice how it moves. The K is not up. It goes down into the middle, right? It's kind of thrown out there. But why not okay like so? Why is it down like that way? Because again, it's lexicalized. It's a sign. Here's another one, if. And that plus plus means it's repeated. So supposing if TV has the same thing, if you can have the sign for if, either on the eye or on the forehead, or if, lexicalized. And then, of course, ha, 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 right? Now, 3-letter lexicalized signs, lexicalized words. I said, remember, there's 3 or 4 letters. Now, I do have a hypothesis about this. I haven't necessarily, done the study, gotten the research together. Don't necessarily have all that, but I do have a hypothesis. So with 3 letters, lexicalized, there is a typical noticed pattern that I've noticed from my own observation, which is the vowels tend to miss out from the production. So if you watch, there will be no vowels. So job, where'd the O go? J to the B, job. Oh, good job. Good job. Why like that? The O disappeared. There is no O. But if you slow the movement down, you will see the O, right? It just looks like it's skipped down. So J, and as you bring it around, that O appears. So you don't need to go the J-O-B, job. It's all there. You're using those ergonomics and it finishes off. So it looks like the O is skipped. Technically, it's there. Now my hypothesis, as I said, is some of these, you won't see the vowel. So job is an example of that. I'm looking for a job. I'm job hunting right now. Yes. Y-E-S, yes. But really it's Y to the S. Where'd the E go? Y-S. I mean, you understand me, right? Yes. If you slow it down, slow the movement down, you will see it. The E, ready? Y-E-S. So it just pops up for a second as the transition from the Y to the S happens. You don't have to stop and make sure that it's produced clearly, because again, lexicalized. So it's Y to the S, but the E is in there. But where'd the U go? Again, but where'd the U go? I mean, I understand you just fine, right? Now it still includes the 5 parameters, right? You still move your head, but right, you have to include the non-manual signs. That 5th parameter is absolutely key, but mouth morphine. If I do it this way, it's different. It's not produced the same, right? Now I know more of that context that whole language provides. So I know this, but then there's something else. And then off. O-F. And the 2 F's slide, right? Off. It's got that movement. Turn the TV off. Turn the light off. Off. Fix. Now again, where's the I in that one? F to the X. Fix. Right? Now again, you do want to watch the non-manual signs for context, right? Those 2 things are important. Context of the situation. So watch this. You fix the roof. And you got fax paper. So I gave you the context of the roof that needs to be fixed, right? I'm talking about the roof. I look up, I say I need to fix the roof. So if you see roof and the fix, it's obviously fix, right? There's no I. The I is somewhat missing, right? But now I also said fax paper, right? Fix paper? Does that make any sense? Or does fax paper, the context, fax paper makes sense? Fix paper does not. Fax roof doesn't either. So fix versus fax. Can you tell the difference? Again, context is going to be key. Fix the roof versus fax paper. So that's an example of that contextualization. Now, the production of them do look the same because those vowels disappear. Where'd the I go? F to the X. And then fax, right? The A's, it doesn't pop up either. But you do want to look at the non-manual signs for the difference between fix and the difference between fax. Contextualization, fix the roof, fax the paper. Bus, where'd the U go? Now it's in there. As the B collapses into the S, the U is in there. Oftentimes it almost looks like B and the S. And you're skipping the U. Ask, oh, gas, there's another one. Where'd the A go, right? It's in there, but it's easy to overlook as it just slightly gets produced, touched upon as the G, the thumb collapses into the S. So it's pretty quick. They are there when you slow them down there. Gas, how, with a rotation, no. The O is there, but it goes by pretty quick. Fax, as I showed you before, fax versus fix. Dog. Dog's actually an interesting sign, interesting one. Now, a long time ago, it used to be DOG, and you'd actually slap the leg, and then you'd call the dog forward, right? So that DOG morphed. So it morphed into how the palm orientation changed, right? It's all in there. The whole word is in there. You know, you don't sign dog. You're actually fingerspelling, right? Like that. Very fascinating. That's a lexicalized fingerspelling. And then bug. The BUG, the U is there. It just kind of goes by quickly. Wow. It's a very common one. Out. O-U-T. So homework, it's out. Maybe a test you failed. I'm out. O-U-T. Car. That's another one. Why would you call it lexicalized? Really, with the English word C-A-R, right? That A stays there, R. Notice the difference. The thumb goes in. So that's the English letters. That's C-A-R. But the lexicalized version, watch it. The thumb stays out. C-A-R. So again, because of that change in production, where it becomes a unique phoneme, that's where you get lexicalized words, lexicalized signs. Now we've got the 4 letters. Burn. The U is missing, right? It's not really. It goes by pretty quick. As the B rolls over into that RN, the U is included. Then the sign for what? What? Or hurt, H to the T as it rotates. The U isn't, you know, the H and the U are the same, right? So it's just changing over to an R. H-U-R-T. H-U-R-T. So that U is included. And then you do make sure that you add those non-manual signs to provide a rich context for other people to understand. Cool. It's not C-O-O-L. It's cool. Hey, you cool? Ooh, that's cool. Cool, right? C-O-O-L versus cool. News, oh, busy. That's one. I like this one a lot. A lot of hearing people learn as B-U-S-Y with this sort of shape to it. Oh, it's busy, busy, busy all day long. That movement. Inside, outside, inside, out. Drop it down. Z, busy. I like that one. Sail. The L goes up. So this S, A, both are the fists. The L pops up and then drops down to that fist to the E. So S-A-L-E, S-A-L-E. So that's lexicalized. That movement is important. Sure. The U is kind of missing, right? As it goes up and becomes the R, it's there. Club, probably familiar with. Quiz, Q to the Z. Where'd the U go? Where'd the I go? So those are skipped. Quiz. Okay? The U and the I are both skipped, those vowels. Now, again, my hypothesis is that those vowels are often skipped in the lexicalized words. And maybe it's just that we deaf people aren't interested. I'm of course, joking. Now, when, it's not W-H-E-N. It's the word when, the concept, right? When are you going to camp? When? Will. If you're going to sign a will, typically the I and L are left open. The I and L are all right there. So W-I-L-L. And the pinky just stays up. It's kind of lazy, but that's lexicalized. Easy. E is up. E-S-Y. The A is actually skipped though, because the E-S-Y. And it has that rotation. So that's the word, the concept of easy. Soon, lexicalized sign for that. The O is not really there. It's almost like the S to the N and it just kind of hops out, but it has that repetitive motion. Checking the time, we're good. I do like bank. This is another one. B-N-K, bank. The N drops down, pops back up to the K. The A is dropped. It's skipped. Bank. So again, those are those 4 letters, and I want to go on to the 5 letters. Early. Many people like this, early. It's interesting because you have a clock, right? An old analog on the wall clock, and early. So E-A-R-L-Y, going around Wittershins, early. It's going through there early. Counterclockwise, anti-clockwise. Fresh. Notice how it's produced. It has this pop to it, right? Oh man, whew, that apple was fresh. Now the H doesn't turn sideways like you normally would, it pops right out. So that's that lexicalized sign. Now, I know the rule for an H is that it is one of those inside signs, but again, the palm orientation, the parameters of ASL are important. So when you have a lexicalized sign, the fresh and the H pops out, it's that emphasis, right? Man, that was fresh. Oh, would, WLD. The O and the U have just been skipped again. Oh, I would do that. I would. WLD. So I'm skipping that O and the U. Almost. If you slow it down, they're kind of there. WLD though. I would. Yeah, I told them I would. I did. So kids often will use that one. Told them I would. Oh, sorry, as an emphasis, right? You got that R. So that's done a few times. Sissy, it's kind of silly. And the other one as well, I think, silly. All right, now double letters. Let's practice those. Latte, L-A, double contact, T. Again, latte. You've got that double contact in there. Chess with the slide because they're at the end. Double letters at the end. Chess. Jelly. It's not LL where you hop it, right? There's no hop or slide. It's LL, minimal. And it's not a slide though. So it's Jelly, fish. So you bounce it. We'll call it a bounce for that. So you're not contacting. There's nothing to contact, so you bounce it. Buzzer. So that is 2 Z's as an example. Buzzer. E-L-L-E-N, Ellen, that double bounce. Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss. S-E-U-S-S. And that double contact on the S. And it's not C-H-E sliding, it's a double contact on the E, right? So C-H-E, it stays in place, S-E. Or you could do chess with a double contact as well. Grizzly, the grizzly bear, That one is actually not done with that sort of double Z at the same time, interestingly enough. So you do move the Z a little bit. And actually broccoli is a good one because you do move it to the side as well. And brass has the slide. So the do's and don'ts of fingerspelling, right? Fingerspelling, if it's a name of a store, of a car, a place, a bicycle, specific clothes, technology, medicine, etc., anything like that, fingerspell it absolutely. Now, you do try to sign mostly, and if you don't know a sign, you should, you can, but really for movies, for books, for medicine, things of that nature, that's what you're using it for. Brand names as well, absolutely. Now, if you don't know the sign, do not rely on fingerspelling. Don't depend on it. A lot of deaf people do not like to see fingerspelling for everything. It's tough to look at. Try to think of different gestures or different things you could point at or different visualizations that you do. You have options. Fingerspelling is not something that you should do as your resort of first choice. So how you're going to get better at that is receptive, right? Now, here are a couple of resources and references for you. Now, I do want to say that my point, I want you to be aware of the ASL parameters, those 5 parameters, because they apply to all of the language, all categories of the language, fingerspelling, numbers, classifiers, colors, animals, names, places, whatever you can think of within the language, it must include the sign production clarity. And that's done through those 5 parameters. And how do you get to be fluent and perfect? You have to know your hand shapes, your movements, your palm orientation, your location, and your non-manual signs. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm hoping that that breaking of the record will lead to a breakthrough for you.